Hello, everybody. I'm Mike, and I'm here today to tell you something about 7 effective ways to waste time. So this is a little bit strange, the situation, because of the pandemic. I'm talking to the monitor here, and I have no idea if anybody is listening on how to waste time. If you can give me a sign on Slido, a live sign, that would be very nice. So anyway, I tell you something about me. I'm a software developer for many years already. So I started my career uh, around about 30 years ago. So you see the picture of my laptops and the logos. Maybe the more experienced people still know which kind of technology is behind these things. And yeah, during the time, my job improved a little bit. So from a software developer, I got a little bit more complex job descriptions. So many things, many titles are applied to what I'm doing. But anyway, I'm still considering myself a software developer. And as a software developer for such a long time in the tech industry, I'm surely interested in science fiction. Star Wars applies very good to Agile and DevOps. I just saw the talk of Sabine in Hall 2, and she had many quotes of Yoda in her talk. I've added some quotes from Star Wars as well. I hope you find them entertaining. Sorry. I'm working for 2 companies actually. This is Get Next IT, the company I founded in 2016 as a consultancy for Agile, and the company Wobi Systems. We're developing software for industrial automation, especially in manufacturing industries. And we are working Agile. So Agile is the topic which concerns me a lot in my daily work. Since 2018, I have the opportunity to be the technical lead of a research project together with Kiel University. And the topic of this research project is to apply DevOps values, principles, and practices to industrial automation, to bring DevOps to distributed systems on the shop floor. A very nice topic, and I'm absolutely happy to have this chance. Yeah, recently we discovered some problems with the feedback we get when we tell people we are working Agile. We hear things like, we tried Agile, but it didn't work. Or with Agile, you never get what you asked for. Or something like, Agile? No, we want to know the costs in advance. So we figured out that many potential customers we tell about our Agile methodologies already made bad experiences with companies claiming to work Agile. Moreover, a friend sent me a link to a blog post. At that time, we experienced this. And it's a German blog post, but I translated it here a little bit. The author of this blog post compares Agile to miracle healers and calls them superstitious and hocus pocus. And I was really upset when I got this blog post the first time. I read the blog post and said, wow, what an ignorant guy. But when I cooled down a little bit and thought through it, I could imagine that for somebody who's looking from the outside at what we're doing in Agile and in DevOps with all the rituals we are performing every day, the stand-up meetings, um, and all the other things, the planning poker. Well, it may seem to be some kind of strange without really experiencing the effect of what we're doing here. And indeed, some companies do these things without experiencing the effect or getting something out of it. Recently talked to a developer from a very big company who told me, well, since 6 months or something, we had started to work agile, but nothing has changed in with our speed to develop things or with the results we deliver. But we're doing all these stand-up meetings and planning poker stuff. This is usually called agile theater, and if companies who claim to be agile get in contact with customers, they leave really an upset customer behind, which other companies have trouble to convince again to work with agile methodologies and cooperate and collaborate with, for example, a software development company like ours. So at this point, we need to think it over. We need to stop in our spinning wheel, and we need to ask, are we doing the right things? Is agile the right thing we need to do? Or are we doing it right? And something we need to think through is we don't want to be efficient. Well, of course, we want to be efficient. We want to save time. We don't want to waste time. But at the first place, we want to be effective. And being efficient without being effective is futile and a waste of time. We don't want to do that. So the question is, what has gone wrong? And when we look at our own past and probably at history, the past of what shaped our social experience and what shaped our country and our our history, then we see that in education, we learned errors are bad. Since we entered school, we were punished for making errors. And we learned either we work in a way that we do not make errors. That means we avoid risky things. Or if we make errors, we cover these errors, or sell them as something else instead of an error. We are not honest about that. We gained a lot of knowledge from teachers and from books, from lectures and so on, but we never learned how to get knowledge by making errors. And in many cases, we never developed during our education the soft skills required to work in a team. In history, we had the industrial history of building cars here. This example, it's a picture from Ford. And there are a few words connected with that. That is Taylorism, which comes from scientific management, developed by Frederick Winslow Taylor, or which is more or less the same as Fordism. Well, all these things are aiming at efficiency. Effectivity is not a question here. Productivity, yes. Efficiency, yes. Not effectivity. Of course, they wanted to be effective as well, but they wanted to build, the goal was all the time the same. They wanted to build many items cheap and in high quality. So that was not the question. And the problem in Agile project is that it's not that clear what is the goal. So who can help to get out of this trap from our past? how to get out of this mindset we developed during our education or we got from our history. The others, oh, by the way, a very nice movie with Nicole Kidman, or only we ourselves can get out of that. I try to shed some light on this question. And well, let's start with how we are wasting time in organizations. And of course, number one is meetings, the classic form of wasting time in organizations. And everybody who's listening now may ask him or herself at this point, when it comes to meeting, what feelings do you have when you go to a meeting? Do you like to go to meetings? Do you want to go there? Or do you think, well, it's a waste of time? The latter answer is given to me when I talk to people very frequently, still very frequently. So when I talk to people about meetings, it seems to me like I'm R2D2 walking with C3PO through the desert, and people say, we seem to be made to suffer. It's our lot in life. But I think this is not the case. When I go into companies as a consultant, one of the first things I'm trying to do is to attend meetings, because meetings are mirrors of organizational culture. What you see there, the behavior you can observe there, gives you very good clues on where to start to change the culture in a team or in an organization. This meeting classic is so well known over time that I found many of the tactics I see in meetings still today in the Simple Sabotage Field Manual, which was released by the Office of Strategic Services during war times, to be handed to potential saboteurs to instruct them how to harm crucial infrastructure and organizations. It's on the internet. You can Google it. I added the link there. It's fun to read. You may realize that some of the things are still very actual. When it comes to preparing a meeting, you can observe sometimes the habit of preparing to win. So it's not about getting a result, working collaboratively. It's about, I want to just inform people about my opinion and make them act like I want to act them. So that's indeed a waste of time, and you can tell that this is happening if you have a very huge agenda with many different topics, and you will not be informed about the agenda before you see the first slide of the PowerPoint displayed in the meeting. And if the person maybe invites many people from different teams to the meeting, it's also a sign that this meeting is maybe a complete waste of time. And the result is, from this kind of preparation, that the attendees lack the context. They have no chance to prepare themselves for the meeting, to make meaningful contributions. And this is very demotivating for those who attend this meeting. Also, useless and distracting contribution can make a meeting a waste of time. Qui-Gon Jinn said to Jar Jar Binks, the ability to speak does not make you intelligent. And as I said, this is meant for entertainment. Don't take that too seriously. So sometimes people change the topic in the middle of a current discussion. Of course, this means the time for the previous discussion is a complete waste. It's lost. It will never come back. You have to start over again if you want to get to a commitment or a result of this discussion. What I find very annoying, and which what I experience in some meetings, is that somebody listens to the discussion, and when there is a decision at the horizon, he or she informs everybody in the meeting room that this is impossible without further explaining this judgment. Well, of course, this is demotivating for anybody. And we are missing the opportunity to discuss a potential risk which we have to deal with and the chance to find a better solution. So maybe there's a better way to get this thing into the discussion at the right time. When you're attending a meeting and you see a picture like that, people looking at their laptops and looking at their mobile phones, but not at the facilitator of the meeting or at each other. They are not discussing, and their body language tells an own story. By the way, my team volunteered for this picture. This is not how meetings are happening at my company. It looks more or less like that without me being the one who's in front of the meeting. It's usually another person. But anyway, when people pay attention to what is going on in the meeting, it is much more likely that it will be effective. Sometimes the excuse for opening the laptop and typing on the laptop is we are taking notes. I think it would be better to pay attention, and what has to be written down has to be written down on Post-its or for everybody visible. And at the end, we have some kind of protocol which was created by everybody. The problem with this behavior and with this body language was a topic of research by a professor from the Rotterdam School of Management, Will Phelps, who conducted an experiment and found out that the worst team member is the best predictor of how any team performs. He put some actors into teams who played a role, and he defined 3 roles for that. The depressive pessimist, who will always complain and always doubts the group's ability to succeed. Or the jerk, who thinks and expresses that only his or her ideas are valid to discuss and everybody else is wrong. Or the slacker, who is just not interested in what's going on and expresses this with body language and words. And what could be observed was that this behavior of the actor was copied by all the other team members after a very short period of time, and rendered the performance of the team to a very bad state. So let's talk about wasting time opportunity number 2. And of course, leadership is a great opportunity to waste the time of the leader and the people in an organization or in a team. So the classic leadership we know from industrial companies is control and command and control. A leader leads like a chess master from behind the scenes, not visible for those he leads. He's moving the figures like a chess master on the chessboard. In an agile environment, the better way to lead people is like a gardener who knows that grass is not growing faster if you pull, and who prepares the environment for the plants to grow. So if a leader places him or herself mentally and physically on sea level, the top level sometimes of a building, with own bathrooms and virtually no contact with any other people from other departments, then we are missing a big opportunity to learn, to and of course to lead people. And I would say if this is happening, this person leads nobody. Learning is a responsibility of a leader, and a leader has to learn that people fail forward to success. And you can do many things wrong. I've experienced the hard way this one. As a developer, I was giving detailed advice to the team on how I think a complex problem should be solved. That's the way of thinking I've learned as a developer before I went into management and leadership. And I had very good intentions, but I experienced that this was demotivating the people to use their own creativity. I was missing the opportunity to get better solutions than I was able to think of. I was the limiting factor here. And at the end, I had to conclude this was really a waste of time. So what I've learned in that case was that the best advice starts with a what, when, where, who, or why. If you are asking question, even if you think you know the answer already, if you are asking questions, good questions, then you're sparking creativity. And if you're giving advice, you stop creativity immediately. That was what I've learned as a leader here. Decisions. Leaders have to make decisions. People expect leaders to do this. Well, of course, that's true. Somebody has to make the decision at the end. But it's not a lonesome task. We should do this in a collaborative way. For example, if a leader never explains the decisions to those who have to carry out the results of the decisions, we are missing the opportunity to get commitment. We are demotivating people. And of course, we are leaving people behind with a lack of context, working in a state of ambiguity. If you do not invite as a leader people from teams to join the decision process, it's the same thing. We're missing the opportunity to get better, to make better decisions, because we get all the information from everybody, from all those who work in their daily routine with the consequences of a decision. We are also demotivating the people. We get resistance. And again, we are leaving them with a lack of context. Number 3, third opportunity to waste time, communication. The most important thing in communication is hearing what isn't said. This quote by Peter Drucker, by the way, not a Star Wars character, one of the few quotes in my slides here. Peter Drucker was a consultant who was famous for asking good questions and not delivering solutions. So, yeah, hearing what isn't said. Paul Watzlawick said that you cannot not communicate. And that's so true, and we have to be aware of that. So Anyway, communication at work. One of my favorites when it comes to wasting time is avoid private topics at work. Indeed, I read an article when I prepared this talk where there was a complete paragraph about we need to forbid to discuss private topics at work during work time because that's a waste of time. People are not working. Well, that's so wrong because what we want to have is trust among our teams. And when I hear team members at work discussing private topics, I'm happy. I know that there's trust. They are talking about their private things. And it's an absolute waste of time to forbid that or even to make some comments on uh, uh, which you throw at people who are discussing these things, these private things. You should celebrate it. Avoid private topics at work is demotivating, and you're missing the opportunity to build trust among the team. Well, this is also one of my favorites. Good intentions among colleagues. If somebody's asking for help and you know you can solve a problem very fast, you think maybe I save time and take the work away and just solve it. Maybe do him or her a favor. That's not what you're doing. What you're doing here is you tell this person intentionally, I do not trust you to do this yourself. The person is asking for help, not for you doing the work. And that's what you should really avoid because this is so demotivating. And of course, you're missing the opportunity to teach. The fourth opportunity to waste time is tools. People love tools. We see so many tool talks on conferences, and it's a holy cow in some organizations to decide which tool to use. And yeah, if you look at things like the Toyota production system, Principle 8 of the 4P model, and the Agile manifesto, they are very strict about that. And we are still doing the opposite of that. Toyota production system says people and process first, not the tool, people and process. And the Agile manifesto says individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Again, the tools are not the main thing here. The tool has to serve the people and the interactions, or in Toyota, the process, and not vice versa. So when we decide for a new tool, and don't ask people who are supposed to work with the new tool about their opinion and probably their concerns. And even worse, somebody is sending a memo that a new tool is a strategic decision, which means don't ask. Then we are missing an opportunity to make a better decision for a tool. And of course, we are demotivating people, and resistance will be the consequence. So, but when that happens, if the tool raises this expected resistance among users or errors are piling up, the result is that the leadership, the managers conduct an extensive formal training based on the assumptions that the people just don't know enough about this new tool because the decision was right. It's the people's fault that it's not working. We're again missing the opportunity to find the real reason why things are not working correctly. And we are wasting the time of the people with formal training, probably. Next big thing, requirements. I love requirements really, because you can do so many things there to save time in the whole process of developing and a product. And it sometimes only depends on a little bit more knowledge. Like Yoda said, in a dark place we find ourselves, and a little more knowledge lights our way. So very smart guy, he knew a lot of things about requirements. You see this picture here. I saw this on the Autobahn. It's a real thing. Somebody put this bobby car on the truck. It reminded me on some solutions, because we didn't have all the information. And just to make it right with good intentions, we built it very huge to at least meet the requirements we don't really know. So somebody asked one of our customers to create a list of requirements ordered by priority. Sounds very nice. What I got was a Christmas wish list. Lack of context, and it was a complete waste of time, because this lack of context was so huge that we didn't even find the intention for this project. It was just a wish list of more or less unimportant things. Sometimes people write in user stories, and you can do this in Jira, very extensive text to explain a feature. And we figured out that it is rarely read. The only thing that happens here is that people think it's complete. Well, there's so much text. It must be complete, even if it's pure nonsense, because nobody's reading it. And we figure this out during the development process. So this does not replace the need to talk about this requirement. And writing the text is simply a waste of time. Well, I said I'm a software developer, and probably some of you are as well. So now we come to coding, the time-wasting opportunity number 6. Obi-Wan Kenobi quote here: Luke, you're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view. As developers, we very likely fall into this. It's our point of view which is the measure for our decisions. And I still see this behavior, that in the face of ambiguity, people don't ask for clarification. Of course, you can't be blamed if the description of the task is not accurate, but you can save so much time of your own time and the time of your team if you just take responsibility and clear the issue. You're missing the opportunity to save time if you're not doing that. And at the end, you create technical debt in the product, and it will cost a lot of time later to fix that. Yeah, this is one of the classics. Again, don't document your code. If asked about documentation, say, my code is the documentation. We tested that. We had some developers who were claiming, well, we don't need the documentation. They wrote some code, and they had to make changes to the code a few weeks later. And they had a hard time to understand what they did a few weeks ago. That convinced them at the end to document, because nobody can expect from others to understand the code if the author him or herself does not understand it just a few weeks later. You're missing the opportunity to, different things. If you document your code, you are rethinking the solution again. Sometimes while writing the documentation, you will change the solution itself. And of course, you are creating technical debt by not documenting the code. Last but not least, one of the opportunities to waste time is innovation. Thomas Edison said once, the value of an idea lies in the using of it. Well, that's true. I think we all agree on that. But how to find an innovative idea? There are so many ways to do that. Good ways. Lean startup, for example, I think is a nice way to be innovative. And well, sometimes thinking out of the box, creative workshops and so on. But the best thing is to try something out, to see if it works, to test your assumptions, and not, and that was one where we wasted in our younger years a lot of time, the search for the bright idea, sitting together and thinking about what could the world need in the future. That may work, but only in very rare occasions. So we have the lack of context here. So we need to make this context reality. We need to learn a lot of things about that, about our innovation and about the world outside that is expected to use this innovation. And usually this will be a waste of time. Okay, so this is a lot of stuff we have to care about in Agile development, in Agile methodologies, or in Agile business models. It's the culture. We need to care about learning all the time. We need to care about teamwork, which is not easy to handle. Effectivity. What is effectivity? We have to be aware of that. Accessibility. As a leader, we have to be accessible for the people we lead. We need to be curious all the time for new things. And we need to embrace change. Reliability. We have to be reliable. We have to be responsible. And agile leadership, well, many things you need to learn which are counterintuitive compared with what somebody like me learned in the past. So how can we tackle all these things? And Aristotle said 300 before Christ that we are what we repeatedly do. So excellence then is not an act, but a habit. And habits are a very well known mechanism in our brains and our minds we can use to tackle all these complicated things. And we can change this quote by Aristotle and put it that way. We are what we repeatedly do. Being agile then is not an act, but a habit. So it's not about applying a methodology. It's about deciding automatically in a daily routine, in a different way, not taking the work away from a colleague with good intentions, observing if we communicate in a good or a bad way, and sort out the bad habits and replace them with good habits. And then it will become easy. For those who want to dig into this, I can recommend the book, The Power of Habit, Why We Do What We Do and How to Change by Charles Duhigg. And another book, which I like very much, Immunity to Change by Robert Keegan and Lisa Laskoff-Lahey. These two books give very good advice and shed a lot of light on the idea of changing habits and how to do that. And they are also very well written and entertaining. So what you need to do is, and that's my advice here, when you want to change something, if you see one or a few things of what I've told you here today in your organization, in your team, please do me a favor. Don't approach people and tell them, hey, you are wasting time. You are having bad habits. You may not like the response you get. Start with yourself. Improve yourself first, even if it hurts. And I know from experience, realizing, well, I contributed more to what I'm complaining about than I thought. That may hurt. Thank you very much. So I think we have some minutes. Thank you for the life signs on Slido. If you have a question, I would be happy to answer.